beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of the Getting Older podcast. It's a space where we talk about mental health, the trials and tribulations of trauma, and also the art of healing. I'm Ivory, I'm your host, and I'm ready to dive into this week's episode. Today's guest is someone whose words cut straight to the heart of what it means to survive, to struggle, and to still show up. Paul, also known as Paul Con Queso, he's a poet, educator, performer, and activist based in Newark, New Jersey. Through his work, including his powerful debut poetry collection, Disappearing Boy, Paul opens up about body image, eating disorders, trauma, and the complicated path towards healing. He doesn't just write poems, he tells the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to introduce you guys my friend, Paul Con.
What's good?
What's good, my baby? What's good, man? You know what I'm saying? First of all, Paul, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course, it's an honor.
How do you feel right now?
I feel really good. I feel like circles are being filled, you know? No, it's really beautiful to be in this space with you, to be on your show. Very proud of you for all that you're doing with this. And then when you asked me to come on, I was just like, oh yeah, let's get it there. Let's do it.
I think for me personally, like just seeing you as a person and just how you move and how you operate, for me, I felt like, why not like get to know you a little bit more, you know?
Yeah.
But before we get into like everything about the show today, I do want to tell the viewers and listeners about how we officially met. I got to tell you guys how we met. Yeah. So as people know, like I said before, I had a really hard 2022. And I think that I remember it was like my two best friends, Brandon and Steven. Remember, we've never done, you know,
Broskies.
The bros. We've never done a trio trip before. So I kept saying, let's do a trip to the Carnival Cruise. Yeah. So we decided to go to Jacksonville, Florida to the Carnival Cruise, guys. And let me tell you something. I did not expect for that trip to be the trip that it was, you know? But I remember the first day of getting on the boat, and I remember just like, for me, I'm a people watcher. Yeah. So I like to kind of like look around and see like who's there. And I remember seeing you, right? Yeah. And I like to like, you know, I'm from Jersey. You know, we like to talk our shit. So I remember I was like, who is this Hercules looking dude? Like, I remember I just like kept looking at you. Like you had like the hair like that, like your glasses on, just chilling, like, you know, out and stuff like that.
Guns out.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then just like looking around, I remember like that first night we met at the bar. And I remember you came and we were just saying hi to everybody. Because the one thing, everybody's vibe was so upbeat. Yeah. And what you said to Brandon when you saw him?
Oh, that he looked like Drake?
Yes, that was one of them. But it was so interesting because I didn't realize when you was talking to us that you're from Jersey.
Yeah.
But
with
also,
the license.
Yes, because Brandon, by the way, lost his driver's license the first day of the trip, by the way. It was crazy. And you found it.
I did. It was on the pool deck. So I went on that trip with my partner, my ex-partner, for her 30th birthday. Yeah. We like wanted to gift her like a cruise to Bahamas. So it was a nice little, supposed to be 3-day, but it turned into 6-day Bahama cruise. We got stuck at sea. Three extra wavy days at sea. I went, and that first day on the pool deck, I see an ID, and she was like, wait, is that your ID? And I was like, no. She's like, it's a Jersey ID. And the guy, like in my ID, I have like a fade, and I don't look anything like Brandon. But at the same time, like from a distance, I was like, oh, that could be. So I went and I picked it up and I was like, no, this is not me, but it's somebody's. And I was like, and they're from Jersey. So I literally took it and was like, here, bartender. Like I gave it to them, to either the bartender or lost and found, whatever. But I made sure somebody got the ID. And then I think I saw y'all later and I was like, oh, did y'all get your ID?
That part. Yeah. No, because he was like walking around to front desk before. He was like, I don't know if someone see my ID. He was like, we'll let you know. But it was so interesting. You found it. But throughout the whole trip too, it was just like going to karaoke every single night, going to like the club, we call it down there. And I think just having great conversations. I still even have that video still of you and Brandon like beer chugging, like I guess, the beers and stuff like that on the deck.
Yeah, when we shotgunned some beers after the club closed. I remember that. That was really fun.
No, it was fun.
But we got to talk about the footwork battles. because that's how we really realized we were both from Jersey. Because we were both like, oh, all right, let's go. And then like you doing the footwork, and then I'm like, oh, bet you got footwork. And then,
you know what I'm saying? We gotta show these people how to do it and stuff like that. Because people be doing that little 1 3 5 step. I'm a little 2 4 6. We keep it even. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, come on.
You know, stop playing. But no, I'm just saying like that. I'm saying every single day of just getting to know you and just having even those 2 extra days too. It's just like having great conversations, man. But like I was saying before, like I remember just like in 2022, like I'm going back to California at that time, and that was like one of the times where I had to make a difficult decision to go back to New Jersey. And I remember going back to New Jersey, and then after I think like a few weeks, I hit you up eventually because we follow each other on Instagram, and I said like you had an event at the City Lounge, and I showed up after my shift before, and then just go and see you do your thing, man. And I was just like really impressed because just like I don't think you noticed like knew at that time for me, like that was such a moment for me to just take in. And to really just like, wow, I really appreciate the people that you have coming on. I appreciate you sharing your story and your truth. Because I'm battling demons at that time. But like to sit in that, it just made me realize like to go there on Wednesdays and sit, I needed that.
I mean, even as we as artists and hosts and facilitators of spaces, we might not feel like we're fully in the space we want to be either, you know? So we're up there as an example of not healed, but healing, right? So we're up there, and even if, 2023 was a tumultuous year for me, like it was real difficult. I went through a breakup. I went through a lot of self-reflections and shadow work, and I was doing a lot, and I was still showing up a few times a month, whether it was the New Eurekan. I was hosting at the New Eurekan like 3 times a month. I was hosting at City Lounge once a month, and then producing and doing other various shows. And I'm still like, I'm going through it, but I'm still going through it. Like I'm still showing up and holding these spaces and then sharing pieces that people might think I got everything together just because in a moment I'm hitting all my cues, or it seems like I do, and I'm bantering. But like there are no divine mistakes, right? Like we are put on the path with other people, like us meeting through the chance of NID, right? Both from Jersey.
Thanks, Brian.
Right? Like yeah, make it friends while we're in like international waters and being like, oh, you're from Jersey, I'm from Jersey, and we become friends, right? Same thing, like you coming out to those shows when you needed healing. Healing shows up for us when we're ready to show up for ourselves. And so it's like those spaces are there. Those doors are there. It's up to us if we want to walk through it or not. It's up to us if we want to really confront the thing that's staring us in the face in the mirror, or we want to continue to play dumb and not acknowledge it, right? So like the universe provides us portals, and it's up to us. Do we want to step through that portal, or do we want to continue to sit in what we've been stewing in, or what has been holding us back? Do we want to continue to stagnate and perpetuate a cycle, or do we want to step forward into new growth? And I think you took that on yourself. It just happened to be a beautiful piece of alignment that you could find some of these like spaces of expression. And now you're facilitating your own spaces of expression.
Yeah. And
so dope.
Wow.
Full circle.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For a second moment. So I want people to get to know you.
Yeah.
So Paul, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what do you do for work, and what got you into doing poetry?
So I'm born and bred in the Brick City. I'm from Newark. Very, very proudly. I rep my city. I love my city. I work as, it's a laundry list. I work as a professor of creative writing at Bloomfield College, which I graduated from there. Proud of that community too. I also am a poetry producer with NJ Pack through this we have a program called Dodge Poetry in the community where we work with the teens, the youth in Newark, and give them poetry workshops and opportunities for publishing their work and performing their work, paid performances through NJ Pack as well. And then I also facilitate poetry workshops online and in person. Right now I'm in Brooklyn teaching workshops at Williamsburg High School. And then I also work hosting and producing poetry events in New York and Jersey, along with being a publisher and editor of various literary magazines and publishing presses.
You booked and busy.
Yeah, I'm overbooked. Hella booked.
I'm here for that, yo. I'm so here for that. I'm listening to you like, why am I complaining?
Yeah, but it's booked and busy and blessed, right? Because also like a lot of the work that I have to do just feels like showing up. It feels like showing up for vibes. It feels like showing up to a healing space. You know, like I step on a stage and I have the honor of getting to see other people like unfold their truth. I get to see other people really kind of like finding themselves and their footing in real time, or people healing in real time. And I myself get to connect with my students, and I get to heal younger versions of me. I get to literally sit there and do the work of like, oh, I needed nurturing in this phase of my life and I didn't have it. So let me be the one to give it to them, right? Or to pay back the mentors and guides that I did have. You know, now I get to be that for somebody else. And showing up in community is one of the most lovely things, because like I just be vibing. I literally just go on stage and it's literally just like I am just yapping. I am just talking shit. I am just bantering. And it's not like I have to go up there and be some like manufactured version of self. I just get to go up and be my full authentic self. And like I'm also like sitting on stage and I'm like drinking. I'm sitting in my seat and I'm smoking. You know, you've been to the city lounge when I would go there. Same thing, like same thing at the Nuyorican. At the Nuyorican, whenever I'm hosting, they're like, "Yo, we got you. Here's a red stripe." Or like I'm surrounded by community. You know, and so for me, it just feels like I'm where I'm supposed to be, not where I'm mandated to be. You know, so for me, it's like a lot of the time, a paycheck is just kind of like icing, and the experience itself is the foundation, is the cake. But yeah, so I mean, that's what I do for work. What else? Okay.
And how did you get into writing poetry?
Oh, damn, that's lore. That's deep lore.
Explore the lore.
I will explore the lore. Oh, you can't say explore without lore.
Ow.
Ow. Ow. Yo, also, can we just talk about the origins? The ow. Because the whole cruise, that became like everybody's like ad lib. That became everybody's like signal call. We were like, ow.
It did.
And I was doing that shit for weeks. I got home and I was just like in my apartment and my ex, and I'd be like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm like, ow, get it.
But no, let me tell you.
She's like, okay, Ivory.
No, but let me tell you, when we were stuck those extra 2 days, I got annoyed of it after a while, because we see the same people every. You know, it's like literally a family tour on that cruise. But I'm like, they're like, what's up? I've been saying it to everybody, literally.
You're like, that is mine. That is gimmick infringement.
Right. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I got it from Cardi B, but you know what I'm saying about it. It's, you know.
Nah, but you made it very carnival famous.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
Yes, but oh my goodness.
Not Cardi famous, Carnival famous. But yeah, damn, okay. Now my brain is doing this thing again. Okay, so poetry. I came to poetry. I mean, I've always had a love for music, right? Like music is one of the great loves of my life that my mother instilled in me. And when I was in 6th grade, we had like a writing competition where we wrote poems as part of our like poetry unit. And then my teacher loved 2 of these poems that I wrote. She submitted one of them to a contest. And then the other one she submitted to be published in an anthology. And when I tell you, like, growing up, I was like one of the gifted and talented kids, but I didn't feel very gifted. I didn't feel like I felt like I had a lot to say, but not the bravado to like come out of my shell and say it. So poetry was a vessel for me. Poetry was a way to be seen. My mom got used to me bringing home straight A's, so I didn't even get put on the fridge. My sister would come home and have a C-. Mom was like, oh my God, baby girl got like a Dominique, pass this test, put it on the fridge. And for me, it was just like, oh, file that away. Like, but for this, when I got published, my mom literally framed and put that poem in her cubicle at her job. And she would tell everybody like, oh, my son, the poet. You know, and for me, it was more than just the acknowledgement of like, I finished second in the contest, or I got published. Yeah, I got published for the first time, but I also felt like really seen. I felt acknowledged and recognized for who I felt I've always been, but it was just a way for me to step forward through the page, through my art. And the fact that my mom kind of like uplifted and loved on that so much stuck with me. And it's something that like I just kept, I couldn't get away from it. Like I stopped writing poems for a little while because puberty. And then I got back to like, I was freestyling. So like freestyle rap, like I would rap outside of all the parties, all the knockout parties, and all, when you go to the city and go to Webster Hall or Copacabana, everybody's outside just in a long ass queue. So we battle. And so hip hop brought me back to poetry in high school. And then I just started writing to like vent and express things and chop up heartbreak and get mad at the government and, write about things that I still do now, whether it's love or I'm writing social justice or political poems or deeply personal and healing poems. That my journey started very young, but it was through like love and acknowledgement showing me that I could show up for myself through my art. And I just kept doing it. I could never get away from it.
Because what I realized too, like when you do in your sets,
Yeah.
I see that you write a lot about mental health, healing, and trauma.
Yeah.
So what exactly made you want to put that into your writing?
I mean, we need it. I felt like I needed it. I needed it myself, you know, whether it was like my therapist kind of giving me assignments like, hey, write this letter to your younger child, or, oh, you know, like think about doing this when you're doing this shadow work. What is how are you speaking to inner child Paul, right? So for me, it's like whatever's going on internally, I need to transmute into my art. I need to let it show up on the page. And for me, mental health and healing has just been an embedded part of my life, my near not wanting life, you know, like as a teen, I was bullied a lot. And my mom kind of normalized going to therapy for me. She told me, hey, like if you're going through it, if you feel like you don't want to be here, then that's, you know, we need to do something about that. So you're going to go to therapy. And it wasn't even a question. She couldn't even really afford it, but she was like, you're going to do this because you need it. So for me, it became, you know, like in the times where I couldn't afford therapy in my life, where I was in denial, where I was so deep in like a well of depression or in a well of grief, and I didn't want to pull myself out of bed, I could always pull myself onto the poem. You know, I could always find and kind of dig and uncover whatever skeletons were laying there and just confront them and see them. So for me, it's like healing and poetry have been one and the same. They've been one-to-one. I can't disentangle mental health from poetry for me, because poetry is a spiritual experience. Writing my poetry is a therapeutic and spiritual process. And so I can't just give like fluff. I can't just be like, oh, well, here's just a poem about, you know, like I can't just be like, here's a poem about sex or anger or rage, because like all those things are going to still show up with my healing. If I talk about certain things, it's going to, oh, well, that's tethered to my own, you know, valuation of self-worth, or why do I go after certain people in dating? And then it becomes also about like my own psychology and triggers and baggages, because we are everything we've experienced, you know? So I can't necessarily talk about just one random thing without also seeing what's at the root, right? And then sometimes at the root is our childhood experiences of abuse and trauma and whatever else lies under that surface, right? Like I can't just be like, oh, look at the, you know, like look at the wave, like look at the wave without looking at the force that creates the wave, right? So for me, it's like I can't just go surface level. I've got to also go deep at the same time. So I think that like all of us should confront more of that, confront more of what is the root lying deep beneath whatever it is that's kind of just like masking, you know, because people could just be like, oh, I'm toxic, or oh, I just crash out. And no, but why do we have these habits? Like, why are you consistently sending yourself into a crash out spiral? Like, what is it? Because I've sat there and had to evaluate my rage of like, why do I get so mad when injustices happen? And I'm like, oh, it's because X and Y and Z. It's because either these things happen in my childhood to my mother, they happen to my friends growing up. And I felt like there was this lack of justice. So now I get so upset about it that like, I need to purge through my writing. I need to be able to stand on this business through my words being an aspect of my activism, an aspect of, you know, advocacy to speak on the things that people would otherwise just stay silent. And I think it's so important to say something if you have something to express. You know, I think like that communication is the most important human skill that we possess. And so many people bite our fucking tongues when we have valid and meaningful things to say, and we could be connected if only we speak out and communicate through something rather than having all these like, again, surface layer assumptions. So I think like for me, I can't disentangle healing and mental health from poetry, because poetry is me trying to capture everything, the human experience, my own experience, and all those things are so bound up in healing that I can't. I mean, I could, but then it would just be a cookie cutter ass poem, and I wouldn't be happy with that. And I'd be like, nah, it's not hitting. It's not going deep enough. So I feel like those things have to be one and the same.
I do. But one thing too, I realize is that because you don't hold your tongue.
Nah, no filter.
I love that.
Yeah, be straight out of pocket sometimes.
It needs to be well deserved sometimes. Yeah. But I was gonna say to you is that you did a book called Disappearing Boy, and in Disappearing Boy, you have a lot of personal topics that are very personal to you. Yeah. So I want to know, like, was there any fears of sharing that out to the world where people see? Because I realize even when I do like this podcast or any type of personal work, there's always like that fear of just like, oh my God, what are they going to think of me? What are they going to say about this or whatever? Now people will put you in a box. So for me, it's like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah. So the fear of judgment is real. The fear of like being seen for who you really are and your true experiences, like truly being seen in expressions of trauma is a deep fear, I feel, of a lot of those who have lived through trauma. And so for me, it was like that book was the first time I was talking extensively to members of my family about my eating disorder and kind of some of the like accompanying times I had suicidal ideation. It was also part of me processing the loss of my mom because I lost my mom when I was 20. All these things were happening around the same time. Like I developed an eating disorder when I was 18, got mono and got my tonsils out the same like season of my life. And then I stopped eating consistently. And I was like, oh, I actually lose weight very quickly when I don't eat food. And it clicked in my head and this mechanism kind of just geared that in because I was like a 230-pound kid throughout most of high school. Like I was a chubby boy my whole adolescence. And so for me, it was like I started gaining attention from women and I started gaining a lot more praise from people and just everybody, oh, you look so good. And like that gets in your head and then it becomes addicting. And then the disease just becomes self-propelling. And so I lived with that for a long time. That was also me processing losing my mom. And that's the first place I ever stood on my sexual assault survivorship and talked about one of the instances. There's still some stuff I'm still not ready to like fully cast into the light. Cause again, these are hard conversations to have with like family, your immediate circle. Anybody who might want to hire you also can buy my book and be like, you know, that poem that you have that's talking about how bulimia is a whole lot like masturbation. Like that's very interesting. It's like you're getting a peek inside like the depths of like the darkest and the most like unhealed, but also coming to healing parts of somebody's mind. You know, so for me, it was like that book was an incredibly difficult time for me to put that out there because even the week my book dropped was the week that we got the lockdown mandates. So I was supposed to have like a bunch of shows outside. Like I was supposed to have a whole thing like in Midtown, like at this place called Poets House in New York City and like an in-person book launch. And I had all these plans to go to like the colleges around my area and perform, but I just had to do a book launch on Zoom. And so in that case, then I had like my dad in the room, various other members of my family who I'm like, I wish y'all wouldn't be here while I'm reading this poem about me getting sexually assaulted at 17 because it's really awkward. Yeah. Because certain people don't know how to process or parse your truths. And then you can see how unhealed they are through how they project onto that, you know, because for my dad, after the year that my book came out, we went out on his like boat for Father's Day in that summer of 2020. And he sat there and like tried to blame my mom. He was like, well, where was your mom? Why didn't she stop that from happening? And I'm like, bro, like I skipped school to be with this girl. And like, that's when it happened. How is my mom going to protect me from something that I went and did without her knowledge? And why are you blaming somebody else for a trauma in my life rather than comforting me, rather than talking to me and being here for me yourself? Why are you just shifting blame and projecting? And it just shows the unhealed and unmet parts of people when they see something in your art that they themselves carry. I think he carried a piece of blame himself for not being able to protect me or me not coming to him at that age, you know? And I think a lot of the time we putting the truth in our art, we then have to realize that like now our truth is out there and you can't take it back. Right. But that's also a powerful thing. That's advocacy. That's standing in your truth. Not everybody's ready for your truth. You know, I definitely have some poems where it's like, I've only performed this places. It is not published anywhere, but when it gets published, it's going to open up a whole can of shitstorm. Right. But at the same time, it's like, well, if that is my truth. I shouldn't fear the shitstorm. I just know that this art is going to unearth a lot of things. So in that time, like, yeah, a lot of people didn't know that I lived with an eating disorder. A lot of people had no idea that I, had experienced sexual assault as a teen and a child. And they won't know. These aren't things you just come to the table and be like, hey, what up? I'm a survivor. They're not things. Yeah. They're not things you just say when you're kikiing. It's these are kind of like deep layers and levels of our communication and advocacy. And poets, we just basically are professional trauma dumpers. So, we just get on stages and say shit we would never say otherwise to anyone but our therapist or our partners or our closest circle, right? But for me, it gives me the safe space. It gives me the forum to speak on things that I think we don't speak on enough. These are things that I think if survivors, if we stood in our truth more, I think that we would normalize the conversations and be able to all collectively see each other in our healing, be able to see that these aren't anomalies or rarities, and terrible things happen to people, but at the same time, beautiful things happen in our healing and showing up for each other too. And I think the more we normalize these conversations, the more that we can combat these things happening in society too. Like as an educator, I forced the director of one of the programs, the first year writing program, to put a unit on consent and sexual assault into this first year seminar curriculum. It's like all freshmen have to take this class. It's about like adjusting to college life, doing your taxes, mental health, buying groceries, like scheduling, having a sleep schedule, like all these things that are like life skills, along with like basic writing competency and essays. And I was like, why are we talking about sexual assault and consent? Are we talking about these things that happen to them on campuses and have happened to them probably prior to coming here? And how are they going to unpack this? And that people were afraid to teach it. And I was like, well, if you're afraid to teach it, then don't teach this class. Don't teach a class that's about life skills and survival, because that's survival for some people. But yeah, I feel like once we're able to rip the Band-Aids off of things that people think are just these like scars that might only happen to them, or this scar that's so deep, like nobody will ever get it. Once you see that so many other people have experienced similar things, right? No one can ever one-to-one get your exact experience of trauma or pain, but you also don't know who's going to feel seen in your words. You never know whose wound is in the exact shape of your words. You never know who's healing it, how your art can be somebody else's medicine. And for me, that's just like, that's always been a reason I do share. And I do try to go into like those wild, brave pockets of like, yeah, I'm going to say this thing that I'm actually really fucking shooketh to actually put on a stage and perform and put down, in ink. But I think that's why it's worth sharing,
And I think like when you do that too, it's like you're very much helping a lot of people. Like what you just said, some of the things you said, I can relate to some of those things, and like just the way you're talking about it. And I didn't really I kind of just like, so I'm sort of like when he was saying, I was kind of just thinking to myself of like, when you say your truth to people, and sometimes they don't know how to react to your truth, or maybe they might kind of blame it on the person. I've had that happen before to me, and I just when you just said that, I was just thinking about that, like, because it happens in that.
Yeah, it's a mirror. It makes them look at themselves. It makes them reflect on themselves, and if they're doing the work themselves, and if they played a part in that in some way, then they can feel guilty or upset with you for your truth. They'll question your truth and gaslight you. They'll be like, well, are you sure that happened?
Right.
Or they'll be like, well, did you have to do that? Like there was just X amount of times where like people in my life would try to place blame for something that I did myself. And I'm like, no, it's not their fault. I made those choices. I chose to perpetuate this cycle at that time because that's what I was, that's just what I needed to experience and cycle out of. So it's like, it's not a place for you to try to cast blame. Sometimes there is no blame. Sometimes the blame is just like shit happens. And our minds are real wild places that make us do things and tell us things and try and get us to see the worst version of ourselves, And when we don't live in that lie, when we're like, no, I'm not the worst version. I'm a progressing version. I'm a healing version. Then that's when we realize that every single time we wake up is an opportunity to better ourselves. And just because we like backtrack or we lapse or we go into the dark of like re-exploring those things, because healing is a really, really difficult process, because you're going to have to meet a lot of a lot of toxic versions of yourself or unhealed parts of yourself, and you're going to have to go back and confront them, you know, and in doing this work to come to love those parts of yourself. You know, you have to accept and embrace that they're there in order to truly meet them and heal them, or you're just always going to live in denial. And I know so many people who are comfortable with living in denial that they're just, they kind of get upset with you once they see you doing the work. So they're like, ooh, we're not supposed to talk about that. Or, ooh, like you went through that. Like how dare X or Y or Z happen? And I'm like, well, it fucking happened. These are things that happen. You know, these are literally just things that happen. Like I'm comfortable talking about grief or, you know, my mental health or eating disorders or, you know, survivorship now because I've done the work around those things to be able to try to be a living example of like things do improve when we show up for us and we continue to want to be alive and be beautiful, you know? And I think so many people are just like pessimistic, like these things happen and then you're forever scarred, or these things happen and then it's like we have to find, there has to be some way that this can never happen again. Like it's gonna happen again. Like people are always gonna have shit. We're gonna lose people. We're gonna make messy choices. We're gonna have bad things happen to us. It's about how we learn to accept and go ahead and mend the wounds so that we can love our scars, you know? And I think so many people are afraid and think we can just like, I don't know, preempt shit, bubble wrap the world. And we can't, but the way forward and the way to make things better is to just acknowledge them, is to speak on them, is to have real dialogue, you know, around real shit.
To accept it, really. I think a lot of people don't know how to accept like the past or accept where it is. And I think that's part of the healing where I'm at right now for myself. Yeah. So it's like, I'm in the beginning of it right now. And I think like you just said, it just started hitting a little me just now. It's like, you have to accept certain things. Like I said, I had to accept accountability in my life. I had to accept that this happened and it's okay to feel those things. You know, you don't have to feel guilty that certain things happen, or you don't have to feel bad because, you know, like living your truth. And I think that's something that
rage is also a valid emotion. Like rage is righteous sometimes. Sometimes we have a right to feel rageful or angry, but it's about what we do with that. Do we turn it into something? Do we turn it into something purposeful? Do we just sit there and stew and like sit in our room or sit in these toxic, you know, mindsets? Or do we turn our rage into fuel? Do we turn our rage into a collective catalyst, you know, to like speak to other people and unify instead of just being mad about what's happening with the government and Trump? Like, are we going out there and mobilizing and actually doing things? Or are we just pissing and griping about it on social media? Oh, I hate, we're in the worst timeline. Okay, well, fucking make the timeline better, right? Like what are we doing with our grief, with our rage, with our anger at ourselves? Yeah. You know, because even the self doubt and the self rage, we can be rageful at past versions of ourselves and current versions of our, you know, I'm sure like you wake up and sometimes you might, you know, like, I'm like, oh, I didn't go to the gym today. I'm so stupid. Like, or like, I will still have these cycles of like, damn, you fucked. Like I'm literally sitting here like tearing myself down because I didn't do something that I've come to expect of myself. That's part of my like self-care regimen and journey. And when I don't do it, I'm like, damn, but that's an old, you know, voice of Paul's that would come in and just tear me apart and lead to all this dark. So if I give into that voice and I'm like, you know what, I did mess up, and then I'm going to just like hold myself to that standard and hold myself in a prison versus giving myself the grace. I'm like, everybody, you miss a day, you know, like as long as I don't create, you know, I don't find a reason every day, then I'm not losing the habit. You know, habits are hard to break. Healthy ones, that's a good thing to have habits be hard to break. But when we have unhealthy habits, it's all about the way we talk to ourselves and the way we love on ourselves or don't can shape a lot of how we actually show up in the world. And I think like for so much of us going through really difficult things, I don't know, you said you're early in the journey, but like even just seeing you and seeing the way that you show up, right, in your light in this moment, I can already see that you're enjoying the journey, that you're loving this like new phase of your connection to yourself, right, and your commitment to all of these different things, right, like your health journey, right, like trying to make sure that you're just showing up, because that's all acts of self-love, right? And
I just found out, because like I said, I just recently learned like what self-love is, and I think that like Because a lot of people don't really talk about that, you know what I'm saying? And I think that what I realize more and more each day is I'm starting to like the little things that I didn't used to like about myself. Now it's like when you come into your room, I'm like, hi, I'm Ivory, I'm gay. Like I say it all the time because that was something so long that I've always just never liked. I felt like it was such a harbor.
Something to be ashamed of.
You know, that was one of my biggest things, you know, but now it's like learning
now
to
it's a sense
accept
of
that.
Pride.
Literally, pride. You know what I'm saying? Happy Pride Month, by the way.
Hey, yeah.
But also, like, you know, like that was one of those things. But I want to also get to you. Like I said, you've written so many things, right? So, like, do you kind of look back? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Have you looked back at some of the poetry that you've written and say, "Wow, that's like a whole nother person"? Because I look back at pictures of myself more recently, and I said, who is this flounder looking dude looking like from The Little Mermaid? No, I did it like flounder.
Yeah, under the sea. Yeah.
Right, you know what I'm saying? But like I looked at it like literally a few days ago actually.
Listen, you gotta love that past version of you. You gotta love that flounder because that flounder was floundering trying to find himself. And now you're swimming strong, right? Like sometimes we feel real Nemo. We feel real like we're half. We're not our full potential. But in reflecting on the fact that every day is a journey, right? Like we learn that every day, like we might not love where we are right now, but we love where we're going, you know? And so like I share that same thing. Like I looked back at old pictures of myself as a teen or at certain phases in my life, even when I was on like the opposite side of the spectrum where I was like 130 pounds and I literally looked like a prisoner of war. You know, I literally looked like I had not eaten in weeks and I was like, damn, somebody give that man a sandwich. Like I can see all of his ribs. Like it's not great. But you have to look back at every past version of yourself with the love and acceptance that you would hope people would give you, you know, because you are giving that to you every day. But yeah, I look back at past poems of mine and I'm like, who even fucking wrote these? I'm like, whose man's is this? Because like sometimes it's just like, oh, I said this really like cringy thing. Or I mean, sometimes I look back and I'm like, damn, you were spitting. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, oh shit, like I really was cooking there. And that's the beautiful thing about like being an artist. You can always pull something out of the archives. Like I have an event later on today where I'm doing, it's with like the youth and community and love, expressions of community and love. And I'm going to do this poem that's about Harambe. And I wrote this poem back in like 2016. It's called "Whip It Out" for Harambe, and it is not about this. You know, it's not just about like the actual whip it out. But I repurpose it into being about unity and about being about collective action. Like whip it out. Yeah, raise your fist in the air. Is the last part of the poem, and it's like, trust me, the way my mind works, that could also go a bunch of different ways. Hey, would you rather have one gorilla, 100 men versus one gorilla? Who wins? No, yeah. Yo, I had my students ask me that just Thursday when I went to teach. The students were like, Paul, who do you think is gonna win in a fight, 100 men or a gorilla? And I'm like, oh man, this is terrible. I feel like the gorilla should win, but people are probably gonna win because we be scheming and we're evil. But honestly, it's like we should be asking the question like, who's gonna win? 347 million people or one government or one president? Like we should be talking about that on TikTok instead of talking about these hypothetical scenarios. The woods or the bear, you know, do you trust the man or the bear? And like, that's a valid one because women do really have to worry about that. But I'm like, in what hypothetical situation are we killing a gorilla? But anyway, the Harambe poem, like I'm a spit and I'm glad because it like comes full circle sometimes. I have a reference in that poem to Kanye. And 8 years ago when I wrote this poem, Kanye was a very different person. I had references to Kanye being stuck in the sunken place because of the Kardashians. And now I'm like, well, he's free from them. I know he's still got like some trauma from that. But you know what? This man needs a lot. I don't know how to defend him sometimes. I can't. He's gone. He's like, I was walking around in 2004 listening to the College Dropout on my Walkman. I was a fan of Kanye before his first album dropped. Like I am a Kanye day one OG lover and truther, but that man lost his mind when his mama died. True. And he did not move towards healing. Like my mom died the same year, the same time his mom died. And I got so mad at him when 808s and Heartbreaks came out because I just felt like the whole album was about him processing romantic, like a romantic death. Rather than talking about his mother, he's talking about a breakup. He's talking about love. He's talking about fucking. And I'm like, Kanye, talk about your mom. Like he should have made Donda then. He should have made an album that was honestly looking at his mom's legacy and his connection and reflection on losing her, like back then. And I remember getting so mad at Kanye, but now I can't defend him in any way, shape, or form. He's too far gone. And it's because of all his trauma that he never confronted and he never faced. And now he wants to do it online by fucking toxic purging, trauma dumping. And I'm like, bro, you can't just tell people about like, you can't just drop that you sucked off your cousin and then like go about the day like it's normal. You can't do that. Like these are things you should discuss with your therapist, sir.
Agree. No,
like,
literally.
Get a therapist, get help, please. And I feel like, I mean, I didn't go into therapy at that age. I should have gone into therapy at 20 when I lost my mom, but poetry and art was my therapeutic means. And when I eventually did go to therapy, it helped because I had already had all these means to be with myself and sit with myself and evaluate myself. So looking back at those past versions of myself and those past poems, sometimes I see a Paul that's really hurt. Sometimes I see a Paul that doesn't know what to do with all his pain or his rage or his frustration or his heartbreak. I've written poems when I was going through really bad breakups. And I'm like, damn, I can't even like, I look at them now and I'm like, fuck, I just want to go hug him, you know, like, or I want to tell him it's going to be okay. But that's also part of our journey and our coming to love self is we gonna have to be broken sometimes. And it's okay to have a representation of us that is broken because now we know having survived that it wasn't gonna kill us. We know even when the hardest times in our life, like you coming out, I'm sure was a very hard process for you to have to like do that within the world to show up and just like stand on that truth. But now you look back at that version of you that was so scared and you're like, what were you afraid of?
I mean, I look back at a lot of things of why I did the things I did before. But sometimes even now, this might be like a bit controversial. Sometimes I think like, because I remember I came out again June 2020 during the pandemic with
happy
everything.
Anniversary.
Hey, thank you. But I remember like coming out around that time, and I remember just looking at everything going on with the Black Lives Matter movement and stuff like that. So I felt compelled to tell my truth version. You know what I mean?
Oh, that was such a watershed like moment and year. That summer of 2020, everybody was just like standing on shit.
I'm telling you.
We need that now. Like it's wild that we don't have that with everything going on right now with like ICE and the tariffs and people arrest, like doing all the crazy things that are happening right now in the hellscape that is America. I think if more people were unifying, we're coming together and we're fighting back, then we'd be in a stronger place. Again, it is about unity, right? It is about the collective we is much stronger than just the me. But it's also like when you see that there's a community there willing to embrace and accept you, when you knew that your homies wouldn't be like, oh my God, how could you be gay, Ivory? No, like it's like probably nothing changed at all with the bros.
No,
right?
they did before. I told them a year before that.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying, this is why I say it's like more controversial because I realize this more now. It's like sometimes I wish I didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't have to make a post of like, here I am once again. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't feel like I had to do all that. I'm just being honest. I felt like I didn't have to make a post of coming out gay. I felt like just be you.
Dana should be one of the
boxes
that's just expected. The same way you're born and they expect you to be cis, hetero, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Like the expectations are A, but the expectation should be A through Z, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so it's saying that like if society were to just wrap its mind around larger definitions and empathy versus apathy, now we're like regressing so much because Trump is like, no, people have to go with their biological sex and that's all that's allowed. And people aren't allowed to do X and Y. I'm like, bro, like you're literally sending us back 100 years. Women are now not allowed to like access birth control.
Like,
some
bro,
fucking like
all the shit that he's doing right now is just like cutting off like the hotlines for LGBTQ and stuff like that. Trying to like PBS, I just saw recently and stuff like that.
They're going to war with PBS. PBS is now asking people for money because they might be completely defunded. Colleges are being defunded if people protest or speak up. And it's like, well, this is the way that the world corrects itself is when things are ailing people, there's a hotline that exists that they can speak to somebody and reach healing and communicate and find resources. How do we learn about true things? We have media that actually tells the truth, which they're trying to also stamp out, which is a tool of like fascism. They don't want you knowing the truth, artists. They also fear artists. That's why they come for artists and journalists as soon as, you know, fascist regimes take over and they kill or suppress or deport anybody who, you know, goes against their agenda. And the same things that's happening on college campuses. They're defunding places that have any form of protest or resistance. And yeah, I work for an institution that got recently colonized by a state institution.
Mm-hmm.
So I work for Bloomfield College, but we got taken over by Montclair State, and I don't like Montclair State. I feel like they are a colonizer. And I don't care. I don't care whoever sees this. I say it in front of, my classes all the time. Like, I think it's harmful to have mindsets that demean and deduce the individual experience. They canceled a Palestine rally because they were like, oh no, this is anti-Semitic and we can't let them have a platform. And I'm like, but bro, nobody's saying anything negative about the Jewish students on campus. No one's saying anything bad about that. They're trying to like not have babies get genocided. Or like various other things that we just want to speak our truth. We just want to have a platform and we think it's fair. How can Trump can have comedians go on stage and talk about like horrific things? Like, he backs Andrew Tate, who is like a sex trafficker. And we believe in free speech for that. We believe in free speech for these terrible fucking comedians that do Trump branded comedy that talk about like raping people or calling people and like they equate human beings with animals all the time. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you have the lowest denominator for like your truth. Your truth is you don't get to be held accountable, but you're going to hold other people accountable for their own belief systems, for being activists or advocates. Like, oh no, that's going to get you arrested, deported. And it's a scary thing because like truth is a necessary catalyst of moving society forward. Like, and we've had these times like 2020. I hope that was going to be like a new age of like the Vietnam awareness, that led to like the Summer of Love and like all these political revolutions and all these mindsets where so much shifted and changed and so much was pushed out into the world that allowed people to embrace difference and allowed people to just be like, yeah, love is love. And that was a mindset then. And then we regressed in the 80s and 90s. And then it became this whole thing like, don't ask, don't tell, don't say gay. And then like all of these things retrograded. And then it takes almost like these watershed moments. Again, it takes Rodney King to make us reevaluate racial violence. And then it takes George Floyd again to make us reevaluate racial violence. I'm just tired of having major defining world events have to be the catalyst for us to just be fucking decent people. Like, it should just be the default. Like, just being able to show up and be gay should just be like a default. Really? Right? And like my students who are trans and they feel like nobody will honor their pronouns or their chosen, because the school is like, well, we have to go by this certain name. And I'm like, why are y'all so stuck to that in a fucking system that you made up? You pay for the system. Right. Let them change their name. Stop dead naming them every day that they wake up and walk around their peers, because you're constantly making them feel like they can't live in their truth. And it's just so wild that it's like, it's the tiniest thing. You could just let them change their name on this fucking message board. But instead, you are inflicting them to this constant re-experiencing of a trauma every day that I literally will scroll, like we will workshop their poems and I'm like, I'm gonna scroll past their name because their name is this name, not that name anymore. Yeah. And so I don't want to constantly expose them or have them feel around their peers like their truth isn't their truth, And I think it's so easy to just acclimate, to learn, to be empathetic, and to just make these adjustments where we see things for what somebody's truth is, And I think that's where like actual understanding comes from. And if people could step out of their own experience and be like, oh, I see why in some cases an abortion might be necessary. Or I see in some cases why this person deserves to have her. Oh, we do need DEI because historically, all of the systems that we've had have been to suppress women or disabled people or people of color. Like we've had these long, ingrained mindsets where we just don't give them the leg up because people don't think that they're as capable, but then they're given a chance and they're shown that they're capable. But it's like without that, people think that difference is a detriment. And when we just show up and we think like, hey, people are people and we just got to get to learn the people before we snap judge, we'd be so much healthier. We'd be in such a better place. It's going to be the summer of 2020 all over again. Yeah. I feel like a change is coming.
The Renaissance is coming.
Yeah, no, dead ass. Like cycles. The universe moves in cycles. If you don't learn history, it's bound to repeat itself. And I feel like we're going to have some real watershed shit happen in the next year or two. And I'm here for it. I'm here. I'm ready.
Period. Now, Paul, you just said a lot.
Yes.
Let me just say, listen, ladies and gentlemen, Paul and everybody so far. You just said a lot of things I really think a lot about. I'm just like, yes. But I want to know, like, how has your mental health evolved as you got older?
Yeah.
I want to know that because honestly, just the way you're speaking the truth and stuff like that, the way you are not afraid to say anything, no matter what the person thinks or institution thinks. Like, how do you feel? Like, I want to know, like, because like it takes a lot now.
It's been a journey.
Really just speak your truth or really to evolve with the mental health. How does it evolve? That's a good question.
So mental health is like our self journey, is our own life journey. I definitely was a very emotional person as a child and as a teenager. I would say I was an emo kid, very sensitive kid. I would take things very personally when things would happen. I was very inward. Like I was very Scorpio. I'm on the cusp of Scorpio and Sag. And so like as a kid, I would internalize everything and get very emotional. And then I would just sit there and kind of like stew and let it like harbor in my head and my heart. And then I'd just get really upset and like lash out, or you know, I would write about it. And that's really the only place that it would actually appear like anything was wrong with me is if I would put it in writing. And so for me, I just think as I grew and got more comfortable and like as a kid, you know, you're not really allowed to take up as much. I wasn't allowed to take up space as a kid. I was the youngest. I was a people pleaser. And then as a teen, once I went through a bunch of things that I did in trying to speak up for myself, I would just get kind of like ostracized and bullied and made fun of. And then that led to more hate within myself and more like of I'm ganging up on me as all the external voices are like ganging up on me. So am I in my own headspace. And then that's where like my mom was like, go to therapy. And I went to therapy and I learned some tools, but then I regressed. And then as I got older and I experienced I had to really hit rock bottom a few times. I had to really hit low depths, whether it was through my eating disorder or grief, like losing people has been a pattern in my life. Like, and I don't think I handled all of those losses very well in those moments, like losing my grandma at 8, losing my uncle at 15, losing my mom at 20. Those were some of the like tentpole losses in my life that I just didn't handle it. Like I lashed out as a kid and also lashed in. And at 20, like I had all these unhealthy attention-seeking behaviors or all these like I became really risk averse, which is also a symptom of like CPTSD. I've learned that like when you go through really complex trauma, you sometimes will do things that put your own health at risk because you don't care about yourself in that moment. And in that moment, you think these are things that are going to bring you any sense of fulfillment or any sense of aliveness in a time where you're really numb and you don't know if you can feel anything at all. And so I would do like real reckless things, like get real drunk and then sometimes like do dumb shit while I was really drunk, or like have romantic entanglements with people that I didn't even really intend to see. Like do just shit after shit that I would sober up and realize I wasn't really proud of. And so I had to go through these like lows and lulls in order to realize that I wanted to reach the highs. I wanted to be alive long enough to like be able to tell my stories and connect to people and love on myself, you know, more firmly. Because I feel like that's a process even now, you know, like it's a process we're constantly doing and constantly renewing. There's times where I feel like I slip and I regress even now. Right? We're never perfect. We don't just reach a state of healed. We are forever in a state of healing. It's not a state of being. It's a state of doing. It's not a state of reaching. It's a state of doing, you know? So I feel like I was so unhealthy for so long, like in my mental health, that now that I do think I have a grasp, again, I'm not perfect, but I facilitated a men's healing space during the pandemic. Like in the summer of 2021, I started a men's healing space online called Men Who Heal. And I really love that, creating that space for the homies and for all mask identities to just show up and kind of talk about our lives and our healing and where we are. And I realized how many of us were suicide survivors or people who lived at suicide ideation. And I'm like, wow, men don't talk about this. Men don't talk about men don't talk about a lot of the men in those spaces were also survivors. And I'm like, damn, this is something we think is like the rarity, the anomaly, but it's really more common than you think when we actually just show up and are willing to be honest about ourselves, our truths, our traumas, our stories. And so for me, it's like, now I just try to unabashedly tell my truth. And I do that whether it's in the classroom or on a stage or on a page or wherever. on a microphone in a beautiful space like this. But like, yeah, I feel like that was a very long journey for me to accept that, and for me to be okay with my truth, for me to feel like even if people do question my truth, or there's people who want to gaslight me or shame me or misunderstand me, they're like, you know what? That's their work that they have to do on themselves. I don't care that I'm a mirror for them right now. They got to deal with the man in the mirror, and not he. This is the person they're mad at, the man in the mirror. Mm-hmm. They're not mad at the person that's bringing these things up for them to then project those feelings on. So I'm gonna be fine. They're gonna have to thug it out. They're gonna have to work this shit out. And if they don't want to, then again, they're just gonna enter this process where they're gonna hit lows and lulls, and none of us are immune to that. But it's also realizing we got the tools. And one of those tools is community, is having people willing to hear us and see us, and we see ourselves in each other, and then we feel less alone, and we actually feel more bonded. You know, it's like when I realized that trauma isn't something that makes me unlovable, it makes me more lovable, but just by the right people. Like the people who are meant for you will see your scars and love on them, not see them and want to run. Right. So like when you meet somebody who is kind of a manifestation of your unhealed self, sometimes they want to run away because they're meant to run away, because you're not meant to have them there. Like I've loved people and lost people who told me that I was too traumatized for them, where I had been through too much shit that like they couldn't handle or accept. And I'm like, well, then that's not meant for us. I'm not meant for you. Or we're not, you know, like maybe if you were willing to understand or empathize with me more, then you could see that there's like a lot here, a lot of beauty that we could grow from and learn from each other and reflect off each other. And I could learn from your experiences and vice versa. But some people are just not willing to meet the unhealed parts of themselves. And that's okay for them, not for me, just for them. But, you know, I wish that for everyone. One of the wildest things I've ever said, well, not the wildest thing, but one of the things I'm like, damn, I really came for them, is like, I'm not even hurt. I just want you to heal. Like, I just wish healing for you.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
For people, that's nothing bad. No, this and that. I do hope you heal. That's it. I
hope you heal. That's all. Like, I'm not even going to drag you. The universe will do that. Karma's going to get her.
Karma's real too, by the way.
Yo, karma. It's not just an Alicia Keys song. No. It is not. But yeah, wait, where did that question even, okay. Sorry.
You answered my question.
The ADHD is ADHDing. Yeah, you were talking about my journey of mental health.
Yes, but I have another question for you.
Yeah, sure.
So like, who helps you stay grounded or emotionally safe when you're sharing such raw parts of yourself on the stage?
That's a good question. So my immediate circle of like my poetry homies around me. So my roommate is a poet. I met him through the New York Poets Cafe when we were still online doing stuff on Zoom. So my roommate is like my brother. That's like my literal, like we live in the same space and we check in with each other every day and we make sure we're good. And then we like vent, we spill, we share, we kiki, whatever, all the time. My immediate circle of poetry fam, I have a Newark-based poetry org that I'm part of called Evolu Culture. And they're literally like my siblings. They're like my family. We do dinners all the time. They'll come over my place and we'll watch wrestling pay-per-views together. So when I'm like going through shit, like I read a poem like 2 weeks ago at an open mic downtown, and it's a poem about me sleepwalking as a child. But it's actually about like the roots behind why I'm sleepwalking. And it was two specific incidents of trauma and like sexual violence that happened to me as a child and then as like a late teenager. And then the root behind why I'm like getting up and stirring in the night. And literally I was like, I took a piss on a chair. As a child, I like peed on my dad's kitchen chair, like while I was sleepwalking. Then another time I like turned on the shower, all the hot water all the way on, and then walked out of the room and went back to sleep. And another time I turned on the flames on the kitchen stove while I was asleep. All of those things were happening because of like my unmet and unprocessed wounds. And so like reading that poem on stage was shadow work. Like I was like tearing up. The whole time I was reading, I had like tears coming down the sides of my eyes. And I got off stage and one of my friends who is, they're a very healing being. They're just, the way they show up in the world is very much like, how can I hold you or how can I show up for you? And they'll do like tarot readings all the time, or we'll just talk about like, talk to me about what's going on with you. And that's how we'll just like show up for each other. Like, hey, and literally like, as I got off the stage, I just had people, like I had friends hugging me, holding me, willing to be there in dialogue. People I didn't even know were in the audience. Like I had similar experiences. Right. And so it's like, sometimes you don't know who's going to come and hold you after you have a moment of sharing. You just have to trust fall, you know? So like literally sometimes me stepping onto a stage is like, I don't know if anyone's going to be there to catch me. I know I'm going to catch me. Because even in my poem, that poem is about like me confronting and holding my inner child at a moment and at a point. And I think anything we do, as long as we're putting in the reps to help heal ourselves, we can support ourselves. We can be a system that we need, but we also still do need community. So I mean, like in a lot of ways, my poetry community shows up for me a vast majority of the time. I'm close with my siblings. My sister and I are only like a year and a half apart. Whenever I need to like really talk about some shit, that's like growing up, that was twin. That was like, I love my sister so much. And we have been through so many of the same experiences that we get each other's, like pain. We get each other's like anxiety and mindsets. Like we're like, oh, we both had PTSD around that way, the way that our dad raised us. Perfect. Great. Now it's copacetic. We get it. But my brother too, like I have a network of people, but most of them are my chosen family, not like my blood family. Because our blood family is not always going to get us, you know? And I do have extended family members that I think like definitely love on me and show up for me. I have an older cousin and her kids who are my like third cousins or some shit, but they're also like very healing centric. They're very like their mindsets around growth and healing are, I would say they align with mine, but we don't always get that from our family. So sometimes we got to go out and find it. Sometimes we got to go out and find our tribe and our people. And I think I'm fortunate enough that I have that when I do a real vulnerable share on stage, I have at least 3 or 4 hands willing to come and like hold me or like hug me. And if not, just hear me, you know? Because again, a lot of us have been through similar shit. And I think the empathy that we meet each other with is how we feel safe in taking the bold leap, you know, trusting the fall.
So what is something about your younger self you now know better with age?
That's a great question. Something about my younger self that I now know better with age. That in no phase of my life was I unlovable. That my voice was always necessary and valid and should have been something I was comfortable with, taking up more space. But I think sometimes we just have to go through the experiences and the knocks. I think like younger me couldn't even picture me being here past like the age of 25. Like younger me didn't really see like a fully evolved version of Paul. I was like going to be Charmander and then it was going to end at Charmeleon. Like I did not see a Charizard. Right. Or God forbid like a Charizard EX, right? Like I didn't see myself growing past certain evolutions. And I don't know if it's just like a trauma mindset or it's something where it's like I lost a lot of people in my family when they were young, not 25, but like I grew used to losing people. And I was like, I don't expect to be around. Like I would want younger Paul to know that life is a long thing once we take care of ourselves and we pour into ourselves, and it's the outcome will be part of what the input is, you know? And oh man, I wish he knew that like shit's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Like feel your feelings, little homie. Like let yourself be emotional. I don't care who tears you down or makes light of you. I remember crying in 5th grade, because some girls that had liked me started like bullying me once I kind of rejected some of them. So then like I was in class and then they were like classroom monitors, like during lunch, like, oh, the teacher steps out. So they put a kid in control of the other kids. And I'm like, that's really weird. Like politically that you're giving them that power, but okay. Weird flex. But one of these girls was like upset that like I liked her best friend and not her. So I didn't go out with her. And I'm like, you hold hands. It's just not actual dating, but whatever. Like I rejected her. So she just held this grudge. And then when she put my name up there, like I just felt this sense of injustice and frustration and rage, and it went inward, and I just started feeling so frustrated. I'm like, I'm not gonna hit this girl. I'm not gonna call, like, I was raised with values for women. I wasn't gonna sit here and call her out her name or like retaliate. So I just cried. I just sat there and was like, I didn't know what to do, and I just started crying. And that became a means of people to shit on me even more. And then a part of me was like, damn, you're gonna get targeted all the time for your emotion. You're going to have people see that as being weak. As a man, you know, you crying literally makes you a target. And so I suppressed that for a while. I just like stopped showing emotion around like my peers and even my family. And I only really let that guard down when I was alone or like in the shower. And then that's when everything would like all hit at once. And I wasn't regulating. And I wish I could tell little me that like, it's okay. To feel. It's okay to cry. I tell my students all the time now, I'm like, real thugs cry.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay to cry in the club. It's okay to read a piece and it gets you so emotional and vulnerable that you feel like you can fall apart because we're going to be here and hold you, you know? And I wish I could just tell Lil Paul that like his gift is going to be this thing he thinks is his curse. You know, the vulnerability that he thinks makes him so unlovable is going to be the thing that becomes the light that draws people to him and become the thing that he instills in others to see the light in themselves. And I love that for him. I love that. I love that there's times now where I could look back and be like, damn, all the parts of me when I was younger that I thought were like the unlovable parts of me are the parts that I most love.
I feel like every time you speak it, I'm just really just like, oh my God. So,
no, it's cool.
It's really good. It's really good, man. But I want to know is, how has your identity as a man, a poet, and an activist shifted over time?
Damn. That's a great question. I think that actually kind of piggybacks off the last question about how like as a man, we don't get to show up as these things. A man, a poet, an activist, changed and evolved over time. So I would feel like all the things that I try to be as a man now were things that I were told you're not allowed to be as a man when I was younger. Like if you want to show vulnerability and sensitivity and empathy and even expression of like how I would dress, because the way I would dress a lot of, you know, like it's eccentric, or you can be effeminate. I've literally showed up to parties looking like Prince, like dead ass wearing like a purple fucking blouse and some like the white loafers, right?
Yes, purple rain.
White, total purple rain aesthetic, right? Like, but that's the thing of that, like, society has defined that we get to be one thing. Society has defined that a man looks like X, Y, or Z, and we haven't sat there and questioned it or repurposed it or allowed it to evolve over time. I just feel like now it's become weaponized. There's men out there there's young men and men killing themselves because they don't know how to express their failings. They're feeling like they don't hold up to the standard or they're not enough. Men kill themselves at 3 times a higher rate than women, even though male suicide attempts are at like 40% of, there's only 40% as many men, right, versus women. Women try at a higher rate, but they're less successful because men, we're told we have to finish the job. Men, we're told that like, you do it, you man up. And that's why men lose their lives at a higher rate because of mental health and lack of love and self-acceptance. Because we're told that we're worthless if we show up lesser than. We show up if we're not so financially successful and if we're not pulling so many people, right? Whether usually it's pulling women, right? Because like to be a man in the society, you got to be straight and you got to be 6'5", blue eyes, trust fund, like all this dumb shit that's pushed on and perpetuated by social media now too. Like social media has become a detriment.
Newsflash, social media is not real.
For real. It's made up, and then it becomes an echo chamber. It becomes propagated, like, and I've literally like talked to him before, and they'll like just spout out these memes like, oh yeah, he's got to be like 6'5", blue eyes, trust. I'm like, why do you want to be with a trust fund, bro? Why do you literally want to be with somebody who is like devoid of a soul? Like somebody whose whole existence is like money, 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 sell people's fucking futures. And I'm like, where is the thought? Where's the intention and the empathy and the care and the romance. And as a man, we should normalize feeling all these things.
Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't be an anomaly to be like, yeah, I'm a guy who I like to cook and I like to write poetry and I like to like do anything that's seen outside of the norm. I think once we normalize that there is no, again, like we were saying before about sexuality, like with gender, if we normalize that there's no like one right norm, then I think a lot of people will stop feeling like they're failures or like they don't meet this standard, because the standard is malleable. The standard is open. Like, I love Bad Bunny for the sense of that, because Bad Bunny has come in and like pushed so much of the machismo in the Latin community, and he's made it so like, yeah, I am gonna cross dress in a video. Yeah, I am gonna paint my nails. Yeah, I am gonna wear whatever I wear. Yeah, I am gonna kiss a dude on stage, and I'm still that fucking dude. And like, Benito is that dude. He's that fucking dude.
He is that dude.
Yeah, he is that dude. And it's the same thing like that Prince did. That Prince broke these boundaries and binaries of what a man could be. Prince will dress like your girl, and then he'll beat you on a basketball court, and then he'll walk off with your girl.
Yeah.
Like Prince was just also that dude. But for me, like, my identity as a man and a poet, it's hard because there's a lot of things I want to talk about where I want to drag men. Sometimes I want to be like, yo, we are men can be menaces, right? And I get why y'all want the bear and not the man, but at the same time, I want to love on us, and I want to be like, listen, it's okay. You can show up and be in pain. You can show up and feel vulnerable. Again, I think talking about it and talking about these healthy cycles of confronting it rather than weaponizing it and letting people become like the Joker, or like these fucking people who become school shooters or become the massage, the massage parlor shooter, who this was like an incel dude who was getting rejected by women and then got like radicalized and decided to go kill a bunch of women working in massage parlors and random patrons because he thought they were all sex workers. And even if they are sex workers are worthy and deserving of life and joy and respect. Like,
no, 1,000%. Just seeing Nora.
Oh my God. One of my friends is in Nora. She plays the best friend. But I haven't seen it. I've heard incredible things.
No, it's so good because here's the thing.
Yeah.
Besides that, I was looking at because obviously Mikey Madison won Best Actress in the movie, and it's on Hulu now. So I was watching it, and I was just like, no, it's really it's good because it's the thing is because I think that we don't really validate like any of these people. We look at sex worker, escort,
dehumanize
like
we dehumanize them. They're just turned into sex object. They're not seen as a full person.
They're real people with real feelings. Yeah. That's something that people don't understand.
And sex work is the oldest profession on earth. Like sex work has existed as long as like sex and commerce have committed.
When I lived in LA, they had that on Figueroa Street, literally.
It's legal in Las Vegas. It's legal in various places. Throughout Europe, it's legal and it's regulated. The same thing as like a lot of drugs. Like once you realize that like, oh, if people are shown that this is not like the worst thing on earth, they'll do it more responsibly. Like you'll create places that are safe. Amsterdam, like everything is legal, but they don't have very high like overdose rates. They don't have high like violence and crime rates because over there, there's a system of regulation for it all. But yeah, the same way, like we don't want to dehumanize people who've chosen sex work as a profession because it's their choice. Like leave them the fuck alone if you don't like it. A lot of people do like it though, and a lot of men are shown to like disrespect, dehumanize. The messages we get in music and the messages we get from media don't help. The Drakes of the world don't help that treat women as an object and treat rejection as this mortal wound that as soon as somebody rejects you, it's like, well, you're dead to me and I'm going to diss you and sub you. Like I'll make art about breakups and heartbreak. And again, it's not just me sitting there like cutting the other person and being like, well, you were a piece of shit and this is why I'm so much better than when we were together. I also, I think as a man and a poet, I want to come to a lot of my art with a sense of like understanding and a sense of like even being able to call myself out when I deserve it and accept my own shortcomings and accept my own flaws and limitations, because then that's how I grow past them, or that's how I learn to embrace them. But I think it's really hard. I think it's really hard to be a man willing to confront a lot of toxic masculine traits that exist in the world, because that means that sometimes I got to drag myself sometimes in my work. But at the same time, on the other side of that is like grace and saying like, listen, I know we all got to deal with shit that the world and society project on us. We all have standards and expectations. And then when we feel less than that, when men don't feel safe to say to their fellow homies, like, I love you, then we're robbed of an experience that we should get to have, because we don't often have those like male connections and male intimacy. I was literally just looking at a post this morning where like Michael B. Jordan is like holding a lot of his co-stars. Like there's one where he's behind like Chadwick Boseman and like holding him by the neck, and another where like Jonathan Majors is like has his head on his shoulder, and then Ryan Coogler, he's got another where they're like face to face, and people are like, oh, well, you know, how do you feel about this? All these photos, people are saying you might be on the deal. And he's like, literally, that is an expression of me showing love and care for my brothers.
That's brotherly love, really, at that point. I do that with my homies too. We can hug.
Real homies hug.
Right.
Real homies hug. Like, give me a hug right now.
You know what I'm saying?
Give me a hug. We hug. We hug in a club.
Bro, come on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But the thing is like, when people don't normalize that, right? Or like, I tell my homies I love them all the time. I have a poem that's called Normalizing Telling My Friends, telling my friends that I love, telling my male friends that I love them, or something like that. And it's all about like, when we hold those things back, those are the things that lead to our detriment. Those are the things that lead to our, I've lost a lot of I've lost 3 of my male friends to suicide, right? But it's like, it's something where I feel like if they just felt like they had an outlet, a safe place to like talk about what was going on in their relationships and in their lives and their connection to themselves, they might have not felt alone. They might have felt like they could see themselves and whatever struggle that they were going through in that moment. Cause like I experienced a lot of the things they experienced. But it's when we're like put into these boxes and separated from, again, like we're held apart. But if we realized we could come together, we hold so much more commonality and so much more strength when we're unified in our experiences, then it would be like, it's a lot harder to break us, you know?
I agree, because also I looked at it when we was earlier. As a black man, I see like I have a lot of masculine figures in my family, and I see like how you're supposed to walk, how you're supposed to talk and everything. And I'm just like, no, like that's just not me. And you know what I'm saying? And for me, like my first pillar of seeing someone who got to be themselves and dress, even if they label themselves as straight male, is Jaden Smith for me. Because I love Jaden Smith. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Jaden, if you watch, I would love to interview one day. I'm just saying, like, that's somebody that I've always looked back at and so always seen, like, as a kid, like, because he's only a year younger than me. Yeah. But I'm just always seeing him and the way that he's so confident in himself and stuff like that. Where he shows up
in the world.
I love that in someone like that.
You saw when he wore, like, the house on his
Yes. Do you know what that meaning is? I've been trying to, like, figure. I found something about the meaning with the house on his head, but I was really, like, I feel like it was, like, a deep meeting, but people keep trying to drag him. I was so confused.
I just love that he was willing to show up and be in such a wild, bold statement piece. And then it had people talking. But I mean, like, it looked like a haunted house.
It was like I heard something about it being like a black house, saying something with like maybe like politics. It said, I think,
like the inverse of the White House.
Something like that.
Yeah, so he was like basically saying like taking up space and centering black issues. Centering black issues. Right, versus saying like, oh, so why has it always got to be the White House, right? Or just like even looking at language, because I'm like such a big word nerd. I don't get why in language in America all the things that start with black are like bad, like blacklisted, blackball, black eye, black, like so many things, and it's like that's an intentional association. Right? Like a lot of these things are created and given a negative connotation because it's what they want you to believe. And like, it's the words that they use. When you look at Fox News and it's on at the gym all the time, I can't really help it. So literally they will just straight up call immigrants without documentation or immigrants that don't have current, visa or citizenship status. They call them illegals all the time. They're like, oh, blah, 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 throws out illegals. And I'm like, people can't be illegal. Their status can be illegal, but a person is not illegal. Right. Like that's not a thing. You're using language as a weapon. You're using language as a way to, again, like with sex workers, to dehumanize people. And when we dehumanize people, we take away our connection and we create barriers there. And then we create a means for it to become easier for you to not empathize with their unliving. Right? Like it's the same thing as like they try to make it out that everybody in Palestine is a terrorist so people don't feel bad when we hear that 50,000 children have died in the last year. Like, oh, well, they're future terrorists. We should not feel bad about that. Right. Or like the same thing with us being men. It's like if we view every man as like, oh, men are so toxic and toxic masculinity and dudes are, I'd rather go in when women write a poem and it's just about like, I'd choose the bear over a man every time. Well, there's good men. There's men who will literally save your life. There's men who will literally like lay down in fucking traffic for you. But you just need to realize we can't boil people down to a stereotype. We can't boil people down to an absolute. And when even men see other men as like, oh, this dude's going to judge me. Or like this guy is going to like see me as not on the same level, or I'm not a man, or I'm not this. And like, that's the thing. Like you can't judge a book by its cover. Even Brandon the Brody, right? Like he's a tall dude. He's a tall dude and he's a built dude, but he also writes poetry and short stories. And people might look at him and not assume, because he is like a little more soft-spoken, or like to himself, that they might not see that there's this whole world of expression that he has, right? That all of us are a complex universe.
I mean, he's so confident with himself though too, because a lot of times people will always ask like, oh, is he gay and stuff like that. But no, like he's really just like, again, he's like a Jaden Smith of the world too, and stuff like that. Very creative in himself and stuff like that.
I love Donald Glover. Donald Glover is like my favorite living artist and human being, because he's just a representative of like, what you want to be, just go do it. Just, it doesn't matter if people think you don't have enough training to be a director, a writer, a comedian, a rapper, a singer, an entrepreneur, like all the things that he is. He's never held himself back. He's never let himself say like, oh, I don't have enough training to go and do this. Oh, my voice is not good enough to also be a singer. He did fucking Redbone, right? And like, that's an iconic song now. And people were telling him, stop trying to do soul, or stop trying to do, this is not your wheelhouse. And he's like, I'm going to release a whole album that's like 70s funk and soul inspired. Yep. I'm going to go and make an experimental song and video. This is America. And I literally teach that music video in my classes about the, hidden symbolism and meaning and metaphor, and how even though like the lyrics are like dumbed down, he's saying such deep things in using just ad libs, in using the dialectics and the words that he chooses to use. And then the fucking images that he uses that are all like of violence toward the Black community, or normalization of violence and mistreatment of the Black community, is wild, because like he's such a visionary, and people knock visionaries all the time. People knock people who don't fit in the binary or the norm, like a Jaden. People would make fun of the way he would talk in interviews, or they'd make fun of him for dressing weird, or but like look at the music he creates. Look at the music that Willow creates. Look at the music that Childish Gambino creates. Like, look at Tyler, the Creator. Yeah. A lot, like, when I was young, I was so afraid of being weird and standing out that I would, like, kill and suppress my unique facets. And I'd be like, no, I can't wear those sneakers are too colorful.
Right. You gotta look like I wear these or this and that, or just like that.
I gotta wear just the white Air Forces because that's what's cool now.
I can't crease them.
No, I can't crease them because then I'm trash, right? Like literally we just hold ourselves up to all of these rigid standards, and then it's like, yo, fuck it. Like, who cares? Like wear the crazy wild thing. Wear the, go damage the shoes, live in them, Crease them up. I mean, unless you want to. Unless you want. Yeah, I do. I literally own a pair of these what the dunks that apparently I realized, I was told by some students of mine that are sneakerheads that they're worth like $20,000 new in the box. That like if I had them in pristine condition, that I could have sold them for like $20K. But I'm like, again, I don't know. I'm like, I ordered these sneakers like when I was in college from some random fucking website. They shipped them from China. I think that they're real, but I don't know. I paid what felt like a normal price, but like I own them and I wear them all the time. My students are like, what are you doing wearing those? And I'm like, I'm living. I think they're fire sneakers. They go with my fit. And they literally are like Frankenstein shoes. They're like, they took all these designs from other dunks and they like carved them out and then stitched them back together. So it's like zebra, but then it's next to like a very like Baroque pattern. And then it's like a pigeon. It's just like the randomest looking shit. But when like I think I have a decent sense of style. So I still know how to match even something that seems like nothing could match with it. I can find something to combine and the fit makes sense, right? But that's the thing. We all, even if we feel like a misfit toy or a broken thing, we always have a fit with our people. We'll find our people. We'll find the other misfit toys, the other awkward turtles, the other weird creatives. Because I think, again, that's about coming to our journey of self and self-love. And you're going to find your people. You're going to find your chosen tribe. If you actually want to meet yourself, you have to meet yourself first. And it doesn't mean you need to be fully found because we're still always in a process of discovering, right? Like it's not like you were like, oh, well, I needed to, realize my truth of my sexuality to find my true homies. They were already there and they accepted you because they've always loved you.
Yeah.
And the same thing when we show up entirely as ourselves, we're not afraid of if people are going to accept us or reject us because we're like, if they're not meant for me, if they reject me, they're not meant for me. Rejection is God's protection. Rejection is just redirection. It's sending us where we're meant to be, and I think that's a thing too. I also want to impart on young men in the world. It's like, it's okay to take the L. It's okay to get rejected and grow from it and learn from it. Again, that whole idea of like toxic masculinity, it's like, oh, well, if somebody curves you or you fail at a thing, you're worthless. You don't have worth anymore. It's like, no, that's a learning process. That's how you sharpen the blade. That's how you become a more resilient you and like normalize it. Like we're going to get rejected so many times.
It's part of life though.
Yeah. It's such a like, it's a valuable teacher. Like rejection teaches us to adjust, like getting killed in the game is how you adjust your settings and you learn better awareness. And if we become more self-aware with every rejection, or we become more empathetic, or we show up in the world and learn how to better meet ourselves, then I think like it'll become less of a like hate-filled, like, oh, well, fuck, I can't stand them. And that becomes... Right. That becomes the whole like Andrew Tates of the world and like, well, this is how you got to get women and you got to get them to bend to your whim and like, no,
bro. People looking at them like, yeah, that's how you're supposed to do it. No, that's not how you're supposed to do it.
It's just so upsetting that people are allowed to like exist that think like that.
Right.
Cause it's like, no, stop dehumanizing people. Stop telling men that they're not enough if they don't bench a certain amount or they don't have a certain amount in their bank account.
Right.
Like, we're all growing beings and we should all be allowed to be given the space and the capacity to like fuck up and then learn from it and apply the L into a meaningful lesson, and I think that's like where we still, even at our big age, we'll still fall short and compare ourselves and be like, oh, well, at this age, I don't have this or X or Y.
Yeah.
And my parents had this, or the people I went to high school had this. And it's like, bro, but look at the economy. Like, how am I going
to... Have you seen the TikTok trend when it's like age 24, in a relationship, 26 house, 30 kids, whatever, now, something like that, all that, like, it's unexpected. It's right absurd. Now, you can't do that.
No, you can't, because then... Listen, I've tried to date. I've dated women who are in their early 30s or like rounding 30, and I'm old. I'm 37, right? Like, and I've never felt like I'm where I'm supposed to be. I was married though. I was married at 25. I was engaged at 23, and then I was divorced by 29. It was not like a traditional life path. Almost had a kid 3 or 4 times, right? But every time I kept meeting parts of myself that weren't healed. Right. So I wasn't ready. But now I meet women who are like, oh, I'm 30. I'm basically washed up. Like nobody's going to want me because I can't, it's going to be hard for me to even have kids at this point. And like I passed my prime. And I'm like, girl, you have so much life left to live.
Right.
Like you have no idea all the beautiful ways in which you're going to bloom. And like we're able to have kids until later age. Like that's possible. Don't let the social media, the TikTok lies like pollute your head. We're thinking like we got to hold ourselves up to this standard of like comparison. Cause like, look at, there's some people who they live for finance. They live for money. That's great. I don't live for that. I don't see wealth as just like, do I have a Maserati and do I have a vacation property in Miami?
Because people equate wealth as success. That's why.
No, it's not. Wealth is not even wealth. Wealth is like your richness of mindset and the tools that you could pass on to future generations. People aren't going to remember you for having a bunch of financial shit and superficial shit. That could be taken away, right? Like look at all the celebrities that kill themselves because they're unhappy. If wealth was joy, then they would still be here.
Right.
Like we would still have a lot of these iconic people still with us, and I wrote a poem about that too. I wrote a poem that was about like the intersections of like fame and also like substance abuse and depression. And depression was like central to all of it. And it's called Let's Get Fucked Up and Die. And it's all about famous people who take their lives, or have certain predilections and behaviors that leads to them losing their life. Like Prince. Prince wasn't a suicide, but it was like basically assisted suicide because of all the painkillers he was on. Mm-hmm. But that's me saying, it's like I'm returning to the thing of like success. We can't buy a house now as easily as our parents' generation could. We can't just kids be expensive. Kids are hella expensive. Like it's not, if you're operating consciously, then you won't just launch into hard launch. I'm going to have a kid.
Right.
Like I've lived in financial fear of having a family because I don't want to expose my kids to the poverty I had to grow up in. I grew up very poor. You know, we had summers where they turned off our PSENG and we sitting there in like a heat wave, just sitting there like with the window open, like or couldn't even have the fridge open because again, power was cut off. Yeah. So you know, we was outside. Yeah. We were outside trying to get cool. But that's the thing. Like I didn't want to perpetuate a cycle and bring life into the world and then feel like I'm not meeting their needs or that I'm a failure as a man because I can't provide for these children. When it's like, if you feel you want to have a family, I guess just be responsible and then like have your family. Don't worry about fitting a perfect societal standard or a certain age you have to check it off by. I think the thing of like, meet the person 24, 26, 30. Anybody not on that timeline is, again, going to feel like a failure. They're going to feel like their prospects for like joy and a happy ending are like washed. And I think that that's so untrue. I think that everybody's path is going to be unique and different. And sometimes you meet the love of your life at 55. And some people are meant to have kids at 40, and some people are meant to never own a home, and that's okay. And
can we normalize that?
Yeah,
though, honestly,
yeah.
Can that be more normalized?
Yeah, I think we need to. I think like once we normalize that everybody's path is their path,
it's always it's so different.
Yeah,
you know that's why I can't compare or contrast certain people in my life now because I see like I have friends who are getting engaged, I have some friends having kids and stuff like that, and me, I'm just like. I don't know what I want for dinner tonight.
Yeah,
you know, so I'm just like, you know, like it's like we
getting by.
Yes, we are getting by, bro. I'm telling you. So one thing I realized as well, because I feel like I'm a student right now in this interview.
Oh no, stop!
I'm kidding. You know, I'm kidding.
We all students of each other.
We are, but I wanted to say because yes, you are a teacher and a professor. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's like, how do you teach your kids how to navigate their mental health through the art?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. I mean, just again, normalizing it, being an example of it. I show up in the class and I'm like, hey, y'all, I do these things all the time for myself. This is what works for me, right? I apply the lesson internally and individually. I try to be like an example of that. And then I'll also just I'll say some out-of-pocket shit, right? Or I'll just kind of like, I'll show them it's okay to fail. It's okay to fuck up. And I tell them everything that you write is going to be a first draft. It's going to have infant legs. It's going to be a baby. Would you call a baby ugly? Would you tear a baby down? No, hopefully not. But I tell them like, it's okay to meet your art and not have it feel perfect. It's a place you're really safe to express what you need to express and to spill and heal and find some shit that's really real. I'm so proud of my students because a lot of them just show up and innately do it. Like, honestly, some of my students were the reason that I stood stronger in my own advocacy for my own healing as a sexual assault survivor. Because I had young women writing about their own childhood abuse or writing about how they were sexually assaulted on campus like 2 years before that, or like things that they were going through themselves that were like, holy shit. Like, I just wanted to sit there and be like, you're incredibly strong, you know? And I tell them that all the time. I tell my students all the time that I'm proud of them when I feel it. I don't like hold it back. I don't wait for this watershed moment where they have to like be on stage and just done a thing. I tell them when they share it, hey, I'm proud of you for this. You know, I had a student of mine, he wrote a poem. He wrote a song actually, because he's a rapper, but he writes poems and then turns them into rap in my class. And he was writing all about his own survivorship, him taking care of his older brother who's disabled, him doing all these things and feeling like he's a prisoner to his duties. And art is his only outlet. Art is his place where he gets to be heard and felt. And so he shared that in my class. And after the class, I literally was like, yo, you almost made me cry. And then like, he was like, yo, can I get a hug? And I was like, yeah. So we hugged it out. And I think that it's important to kind of model that no matter what they have to say, they're safe in saying it. I create that like really, really nurturing community space, because I try to do that. Like culture building is really important to me in the classroom. Like we come into the class and I'll just do 1 or 2 classes that are just intentional community building. And so by the time we get to actually writing and sharing poems or stories, they feel safe. They feel like they're not going to be judged. Even if they say some wild and out-of-pocket shit, even if they air some really vulnerable, traumatic truths, at the end of it, they're going to feel held. They're going to feel like their truth was welcome there. And I think that that's something I think they should always walk into the world feeling, not just one classroom, one semester of their life. I think like we should be breathing examples of that everywhere we go. Don't be afraid. Speak your truth. Treat it like we got a podcast mic everywhere. And anywhere is a place you can have an open invitation to like invite others to open up about their truth too. Because I think that's the thing too. People don't just worry about writing it. They worry about sharing it with the world. And I think that that's another thing that I really want to impart on them. Like, you're going to survive. Like, I promise you, you're not going to share this art and then just like explode. You're not going to share this art and now all of a sudden people are going to walk around in the streets and be like, you, like point fingers at you and like yell shame. Like, it's like, no, people will commend your bravery. People will love you for your truth, right? Not kind of drag you for it. And I think that's the important thing, is to not shy away from their truth, because their truth holds so much power and so much medicine, so much of what we need, like, and what I needed too, because I didn't know as their professor, I needed the healing that their words gave me, and the strength to stand in my own advocacy and truth, because they were examples to me of what it could mean to stand on fucking business.
Period, man. Yeah. And that's what makes you a great professor, because when I met some of your kids at some of your shows, and just get to know them, I'm like, we like Paul and stuff like that. And I see it, like the way, like you just said, like you encourage them to be themselves. You encourage them to tell their truths. And I love that. Yeah. But you as an artist and activist, like, how do you balance them? Or do they coincide as one together?
See, it's hard, because like as an artist and an activist and also an educator, I sometimes feel like the educator thing, because it's tied to a salary, and even an artist is sometimes tied to a salary. Being an activist, to me, I never looked at as a career, right? I looked at being an activist as like, I'm doing this strictly out of passion and compassion and my care for others and what I just believe, right? So like an artist, those two things intersect all the time, because I'm constantly writing about like social justice causes, and even just my own internal struggles, right, end up having some kind of a external, right? It's a representation of healing. It's a representation of normalization and advocacy. So those two things intersect and overlap all the time, because I've been asked to like read a poem that's at a certain rally or a themed event, or I've organized protests with my students on campus, right? So as an artist, creating art that lets us speak our activism and then live our activism, right? And as an activist, I've published literary magazines that are for social justice causes. Like, we've sold them online, and then when people buy them, we use the proceeds and donate to different charitable causes. We make it actionable. We don't just have words. We let the words lead to a monetary means to create change. So our words are a catalyst for change because they're reaching people, but then like the actual things that we get, the product that we get out of people buying our art creates activism and change as well. But the educator thing really complicates it, because then I feel like it is my platform and I love it so much because it allows me to reach so many young folks and help them wake themselves up to what they care about and help them stand on the causes that really matter to them. But it's also hard because then there's that layer above us that's always like, well, it's not appropriate to say this, or it's you might get fired or blacklisted or this or that if you say that. And I'm like, I'm literally here just being like, tell your full truth. I'm literally being here like, let's normalize these conversations. I've had people clutch their pearls because I taught a poem to like middle schoolers or high schoolers that talked about a girl that was like in a roller skating rink, and then it made her think, like looking at her younger cousin, she was thinking about when she got sexually assaulted at that same age. And I was like, do you not think we have teenagers here that are dealing with that? Do you not think we have young people who are experiencing this? And it's like, because you want to place restrictions around artist educators, right? Or artivist, because artist and activist, I see as one all the time. Like artivist educators, if you want to place boundaries on me, then you're not going to let me truly do my job. Right. And that's a difficult thing because I thought college was the one place that it's like, I'm not going to be censored ever. Cause like you can teach any subject. They're adults. You could teach anything. And then like nobody from administration ever pops into my class. I get observed maybe once a year, but now it's like the whole idea is they are literally tearing down the program from like the foundation, right? Like creative writing used to be a major at my college. That's what I got a degree in at Bloomfield College. Then I went and got my Master of Fine Arts. But now the college that I'm at, since we got colonized, they no longer have creative writing as a major. Now it's just a minor. And even the fact that it's a minor, they're not offering any classes beyond like intro to creative writing and maybe one other class a year. And I'm like, how is a student going to minor in this when they need 8 classes of creative writing to get that minor as part of their degree track? You're basically saying like, you can sign up for it, but we're going to throw you peanuts or bread. Like we're not going to actually give you something of substance. They used to. I used to be teaching 3 classes a semester. Now I teach 1 and it's the same class all the time. And the classes that I have that are offered outside of that, they don't promote at all, or they have technical issues where my same class has gotten canceled 2 years in a row because students told me they can't register for it. And I'm like, y'all are literally sabotaging this class for me. And it's so frustrating because these are means of advocacy. These are means of activism for my students. One of my classes is about them publishing a literary magazine where they get to just speak their voice. They get to be published for the first time in their life for most of them. And it's so profound and meaningful because that's where I started. I got published for real, not just the youth anthology, but in like college, I got published by a literary magazine. And that was so validating to me. That was a means for me to really be like, damn, my voice carries. My voice matters. And they're taking those opportunities away from our youth, left and right, because again, art is not valued in a capitalist world. It's like they literally are like, hey, but is this going to translate into their career field, and how can they use this and integrate and implement? It's just frustrating because art is not held to the same standard as like the sciences or things that are gonna automatically make students money once they get out of that degree field. And that's so disappointing because that's what and education is holistic. Even my students who were psych majors or were nursing majors, but they would take my creative writing class, they'd be like, oh my God, I like discovered so much about myself, or I learned so much about my field, like getting to write and wrap my mind around psychology and seeing the experiences of my future patients. Or I'm going to use this in my practice and I'm going to teach people to write poems as part of my therapeutic practice, or people in nursing parsing the grief that comes with working in the medical field. And I had students who were working during COVID and seeing people die left and right and losing relatives. And then they were using my class as a means to process grief. And it's like, how are we going to take those tools away from people? How are we going to take away people's spaces to feel safe? And
because we're healing through art.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't. As an artist myself, it's like whenever I'm doing I do photography and videography, it's like whenever I'm capturing a portrait or whether or not, if I'm just talking to the model, I love to do like Q&As with my models and really get them, because instead of like, I don't want that like model pose. I really want like the authentic, you know what I'm saying? Like that. So for me, it's like, I love having conversations with my model or the person I'm doing it with. And we're just talking and talking, and it shows through the photo every time we say it. Cause I always say, like 1,000 words and stuff like that. Tells the image and stuff.
And you really get them, not like some pre-stock idea of what you think like a model poses, or like you look good doing this. Like talk to them and get them to pull it out of themselves.
But it's just like in the same time, like just like when I do that, it's healing. And I feel bad that like for your program that has happened to you, because we need that more than ever right now.
We do.
You know what I'm saying? So,
but exactly why we need it is why places want to crush it. Places that know that that's a means to unifying, and that's a means to collective like expression and activism, is why people are afraid of it. People, again, the whole idea of like when regimes of, authoritarian or fascist people get in power, they're like, oh, we got to tear down these artists, because the artists are going to be the ones to radicalize people. Like look at all the beautiful protest music that was made throughout the 60s and 70s, and Marvin Gaye and Bob Marley. And now today we got Kendrick Lamar, but even, a lot of our artists are being censored in what they're allowed to say too, because they're owned by record labels that if they don't like their message, they're gonna completely suppress it, right? That's why like one of the only artists, like Kalani's been incredible in her speaking up for the causes of like Palestine and slipping that into her music very subtly. But Macklemore, since he's an independent artist, he's like, you know what? Fuck y'all. I'm going to release a whole song that is like stitching together all the terrible things that like this Trump regime has done in the first 100 days. And I'm also going to release this song that's like talking about the kids that they're taking advantage of in the Congo and mining for cobalt, and how much Elon has contributed to that, and how much like how much money is being siphoned out of our taxes to go to Israel to kill innocent people. So it's like, I did not have Macklemore being a fucking social justice hero in 2025 on my bingo card, but I'm glad that he's an independent. See, and that's the difference between an independent artist or an artist that belongs to like a corporate and capitalist structure, because they're not given the same freedoms. And that's the thing for me as an educator. I fear that everything is going to become corporate. And I fear that everything is going to become, there's levels of censorship. There's levels of you can't do this or say that. But throughout free speech, like we're not allowed free speech right now. Like the dude from Colombia was deported because of the way he thinks, because of the thoughts he has around Palestine and unifying people. Like ICE detained him and deported him without giving him a trial or due process. And he was a legal citizen. Like he was married and had his citizenship here, and that was revoked. The same thing. I fear as an educator, the things that I say, the way that I advocate for my students to think radically, to think for themselves, that's something that people fear so much that they don't want me to take up space in those institutions anymore. Because for them, getting the funding from the government is more important, or having monetizable, having tracks that make the most money. And again, I recruited so many students to my college that became creative writing majors or minors. I just had 9 students in my thesis class last semester. And that's like the most we've had in over 10 years, because enrollment rates have just been declining through higher education for people can't afford it. People can't afford it.
Yeah.
They don't know if they're getting their money's worth, and just a lot of reasons. But it's like, I did everything I could. I grew my program. I actually grew it through a time of struggle. And then they just turned around and were like, well, you know what? We don't see the value in it. And I'm like, I poured so much care and effort and love into it just to be stifled and silenced. And it's like, I hate being silenced. I hate money being the only indicator of success or only worthwhile means of like, should we foster this? Should we let this exist? And it's like, there's so many things that don't make money but are necessary. Like fucking PBS doesn't really make money, but it's Sesame Street raised generations. Magic School Bus.
Still does the work of kids now. Still does that.
Magic School Bus. Fucking Wishbone. Like I learned literature from Wishbone. I learned so many life lessons from watching like Arthur, like things that are provided for us that don't cost money or make money or take money. Those are the things that are truly priceless. Those are the things that are like worth so much more. If you find a partner you're compatible with and you're not worried about like, well, is it trust? Do they have a trust fund? How much money can they have? Can they buy me a house in the next 3 years?
Right.
Like, why are we fucking expecting that from a person we're supposed to see as a soul, from a person we're supposed to like connect with in our heart and find like, are we actually compatible as people, not as fucking figures on a resume? And that's why like so many people in dating now look at dating as like an interview. And it's like, do you check all these boxes? Well, now we can start seeing if we actually care about each other and we're compatible. And I'm like, it's crazy. That is crazy that you want to get to know all of the like parameters that like qualify somebody before you get to know them as a person.
Right.
I get dating with intention. I get it. I get not wanting to have incompatibilities. And to some people, money really is one of the most important things, you know?
Yeah.
Some people think that's the only way you can feel provided for. And I'm like, what about emotional stability? What about being a provider of somebody emotionally, giving somebody emotional safety and reassurance and communication?
But what about for better or for worse? Because at the end of the day, you can have money today and then no money tomorrow.
You never know what could happen.
Because people, I always laugh at that stuff too. Because people don't realize, like, you see all these people all the time in the world. It's like, I have tens and millions of dollars, but at the end of the day, you can go broke with things happening. You can go
hella bankrupt. Like,
it happens. And that's something that people need to understand.
But do you love the person or do you love what they provide you? Do you love the person or do you love the things attached to them, right? And if you don't love the person, then you don't love them for better or for worse. You don't love them you love them very conditionally. And the conditions are that X and Y needs are being met. And I think that's like another thing. That's another representation of social media mindset too, is that like we're learning to value what things we can be provided. What experience? Oh, fly me out. Like, show me you really care. Fly me out. Show me you really care. Drop 1,000 in my fucking Venmo. Show me you care. Pay for my hair. And I'm like, bro, do you understand? We're all we be trying to survive. Like the means to coming to care about somebody. You don't got to prove your care for somebody by buying them a bunch of stuff. Like,
hell no.
It's so much more meaningful. I mean, gift giving is one of my love languages. I will buy people stuff, but I'm like, I'm gonna make you a playlist. I'm gonna write you a poem. I'm gonna remember something meaningful about you, and we're gonna share an experience that ties into something you told me.
That's more genuine from the heart, though. You know what I'm saying? More. That's even more better than just like some materialistic shit. You know what I mean?
No, but people would rather have a Gucci clutch. I get it. I get that like having things is an expression of status, and it's a way some of us feel. Like, I love buying things too. I be superficial, but I don't care how much I spend on my clothes if I just like them. Right. I don't care how much I spend on a date if it's an incredible date. Like, it's about the experience itself, not about the sticker price. And I think that we have become a society that values the sticker price so much that like we think that's what validates the experience. You could go to the most trash restaurant, but if it's like downtown, if it's so beautifully ornately decorated, right, and you get to take so many Instagram pictures there, and then at the end the bill comes and you're like, oh damn, that Wagyu steak that I got is $220 and a bottle of champagne was $300. It's like, bro, we could have had this same meal at somewhere where the food was 3 times better, and it would have cost like $90 instead of $400. But some people are just attached to the idea of like, I'm getting like a high-end experience, or like I'm living a high life. And it's like, a high life is how you actually experience it, not about a stand. You think, oh, if I want to go out, I've got to be able to flex for the gram to this extent. I've got to go here and it can't look like that. And it's like, what are your definitions of joy or like success? And again, how many of us are achieving these things and it continues to leave us in a cycle of feeling like failures? It leaves people to feel like if you can't afford to take somebody out on this extravagant of a date, just don't date at all. People are saying all the time, like, oh, if you can't afford to date, just don't date. And some people are like, oh, okay, because financially they're grinding or struggling or growing, then they just don't deserve love in their life. They should just be alone because they're still in a state of stasis and growth. That's bullshit. Like, real love is supporting and growing with each other. The person that I met when I was 21, and we were both broke college students. And we decided we were going to get married at 23. I proposed. I bought a whole ass ring, not knowing how I was going to afford the wedding. I afforded more than my half of thing. I paid for like 70% of the wedding through being a substitute teacher. And I just like hustled. I just hustled. Yeah. And then I paid for that. And we struggled, but we were really happy. And at the end of it, like, things didn't work out. I was taught beautiful lessons. Like, I got to grow up through my 20s with this person. And I got to experience so many beautiful things, learning and discovering about myself, having really low lows where she was there for me when I didn't love myself, and nursing me through a lot of really painful things. And I did the same for her. Sometimes you don't realize that, like, love is an experience of growth. You don't have to show up to meet love as a finished product. Because again, we're not finished until we're dead. And then we're not finished because we're like eroding and evaporating, and we're a soul at that point. So it's like you're never just ready. You're never ready for anything. You just have to have faith and trust fall into it. Like we were saying with sharing your poems. I used to think I had to be ready to be a father. I used to think I had to be ready for all these certain benchmarks, and I held myself back from experiencing things in life. Like I don't have kids. I've been married, I've been a stepdad, I've been all these different things, but I've held myself back because of my own traumas, because of my own fear. I had so much fear in my heart that I was gonna expose my children to the same cycles of trauma that my parents did to me. I was so afraid of living and exposing my children to poverty, like I had to grow up in, that I literally denied various partners of mine a family. Like I was like, no, I'm not ready, or I don't know if I'll ever be ready, because of my own fear and my internalized trauma. And that held me back from things I thought. Now I know they weren't meant for me at that time. If they were, I would have felt compelled. I would have pushed. I think I might have been able to process past my fear, but the fear just had me in like a headlock. And it allowed me to lose a marriage. It allowed me to lose some long-term relationships. I had a partner who miscarried because of like the stress of both of us, I was overjoyed and then I was overwhelmed. And I was like, I'm happy, but now I'm like hit with all the reality of it because like, again, it's expensive out in this world right now because everything that everybody values is fucking superficial and nothing is set up for us to really succeed. Like we're not paid enough to live to where we could save enough to go on real like actual vacations or to invest in and buy a house. Because if we had all these means to be self-sufficient, we'd be more independent. Then we wouldn't be so in fear of missing a week at our job that might leave us homeless. Right? Or like leaving a job we're deeply unhappy at to go chase our joy because then we might be crippled in debt or we might never find a job again. Like we literally are pushed into all of these places we are because of fear. Like I didn't start a family because of fear. And I think so much when fear dictates so much of our life that people are not even willing to like step out into the dating world because they're like, well, if I can't afford it or if I'm not healed enough or and I mean, there should be a level of healing. We shouldn't just be out here like bleeding our wounds onto other people. Yeah. You know, you should come with a certain level, I think, of like accountability. And like I have reached this state where I have these tools and I'm not just gonna like trauma dump onto and mesh or trauma bond with somebody. Yes, we should reach healing to a certain extent where we're not just out here infecting other people with our issues. That's the real STI. Mm-hmm. But I think also like the idea that we need to be at certain levels in order to experience life is also a lie. And it's holding a lot of our generation back from truly living. Like our generation is one of the most unmarried generations. We can't buy homes because we're still crippled in college debt. We can't travel as much as we want to, even though a lot of us still choose to just travel. We're like, fuck it, like credit cards be damned, or like whatever bills be damned. But so many of us are living at home with our families because we can't support being out in the world. But it's crazy. It's crazy.
Now, Paul, I have my last question for you, okay?
Final one, okay.
I know.
Boo.
Man, you're a blessing, man. I just want to know that. You really are. I love everything you've been saying so far is so true and so real. I just want to say thank you for it all.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for giving me the space. Thank you for building a beautiful platform to allow people to come on here and really reflect on healing. Because I think it's like such an essential part we don't always think about because we're constantly doing it. Mm-hmm. But if more people were conscious of their healing and more proud of their growth, like I think we need to look back more and be like, damn, look at how much I've healed and how much I've done. And then that allows us to feel like it's not worthless, you know, that like, oh, all these checkpoints along the way. And I've done so much, like looking back at younger me. And then once we do have a shortfall and we do fail, we're like, but I can grow from this and I'm going to heal stronger and better.
That's how I feel though, because I feel like it's been such a resurgence for me of just like really just like understanding like, wow, this is what it looks to be generally happy. Yeah. Wow, this is what it looks like to be generally sober. Or wow, it just feels like I never had those feelings really ever growing up. Really, I'm just of myself mainly. Yeah. I had a great life, I had a great family. I just want to say that, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I'm just saying for me personally, I just never felt that. So now
because these are societal projections. Yeah. They're societal projections of like, what should you be to be successful? And when you don't feel successful, you feel less than, you know?
But I want to know for you is like my last question is there a certain poem that you've written that stays true to you to this day or something that you love reading or saying to?
Yeah, absolutely. I would feel like, oh my God, there's so many. I literally have a poem called Council Culture that is about, I have a poem called Council Culture that is about kind of like meeting or healing. And normalizing that and like letting that become part of the zeitgeist, the moment of like, I think to an extent, like social media has also been a positive tool for people to access a lot of these therapeutic resources that they can't afford it. So they can go follow a therapist on TikTok or IG and they're getting their content and they're getting help. Like I've learned so many different spiritual healing and therapeutic processes just through following and being a student myself, being autodidactic, teaching myself shit, right? That's a big word. I love that word though, autodidactic.
How do you say autodidactic?
Autodidactic.
Didactic.
Yeah, autodidactic means like a self-learner. But yeah, I definitely think like poems around healing. That poem, do you mind if I read this poem real quick? The poem, telling my male friends I love them. Because I think that that's going to say a lot. And telling my male friends I love them as a radical form of joy. Because I'm tired of pretending I am all Stonehenge when really sometimes I just want to be trampoline. We who jump, we who dance, we who bend, we who snap, we who invent sacred handshakes and call them bond, we who hit on friends platonically. Because are your best friends really your best friends unless you unironically tell them how comet they are often enough to let them honor their tale before it becomes trail? To let them know they're just as beautiful as they truly are, free floating in all their fluttering. And so, if we are all children of men here who share a space, who share a curse, who share the same shame, who share the name of a gender synonymous with suffering and oppression and subjugation and rape culture, and if we all got our name from a woman, why do we take from our women? And we who were never allowed to weep, we who were never allowed to paint our nails, we who wanted so badly never to fail, wanted so badly to fall into a small ashen heap of softness and give the day an excuse to use our bodies as something other than blunt object, other than battering ram. So I tell man, snatch back your body to the beat. Now is your chance to be malleable, to be soft, to absorb sunlight and hugs and compliments like I love you, man, not only at the funeral, but above the ground. Be the trampoline so you can catch me when I am all too familiarly hurling myself into the ground with all the force my battering ram body can bear. Catch me there and tell me you love me too much to let me land in any manner but softly.
Paul, I love you, man.
Love you too.
I do. And I appreciate you for sharing your truth and for really just being unapologetically you, one. But again, to reveal a lot of truths. So there's some things I haven't really known about you throughout this interview. And I think that you really are a special light. And I think that as I look at myself, as I'm doing the work, I look at you, this is like the version that I would love to be. And I am going to be that version in the sense.
We're all mirrors. We're
all mirrors in the sense like that, you know what I'm saying? But I just love like the truth that you live in and what you're saying. It's amazing and it's important.
Thank you, Brody.
And I love that about you, man.
Thank you, Brody.
Now, is there any like final thoughts or anything you have coming up you want to share?
Yeah. So I would say if y'all want to follow, because my events be fluid and happening all the time. If y'all want to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram at Paul Con Queso, at PaulConqueso. That's Paul with the cheese, but it's in Spanish. Queso. And then you can find all the events that I plug there, my link tree there, the links to buy my book, Disappearing Boy, there. And yeah, I mean, I'll have events outside all summer, going to be doing a bunch of stuff with the New Rican throughout the summer. You know, June is, Puerto Rican Day Parade. So we going to do that. Be outside for that. Pride, of course, is June. So I'm going to have a bunch of folks in Newark. I know a bunch of people who are going to be out and doing Pride open mics and Pride collective stuff. So yeah, I mean, just follow me for that. But I guess the parting words I want to say is, don't be afraid of falling. Don't be afraid of being the version of you that fails. Don't be afraid of being the version of you that's not perfect at all times. Because that's the version of you that's going to learn, that's going to let you learn to love yourself in every incarnation and every iteration. Like me being able to meet the unhealed parts of myself has allowed me to love myself into healing. And I think like seeing you, and I'm really proud of where you are on your journey. Like I'm proud of you also standing in that healing journey, and seeing just how much you've grown since I've known you. And not to say I also wasn't proud of and also didn't have so much love for the Ivory I met 3 years ago, right? Like I'm still learning to love and give myself grace for the person I was between the time I met you and the person I am now, right? Like I made mistakes. I've lost people. But at the end of the day, I have a hope in my heart that all of the best parts of my life are still to come, and all of the most beautiful discoveries are still coming. And I genuinely believe that, but it's sometimes going to come through me failing. And I think as long as we give ourselves the grace and we give the people around us who love us and who we can love on in return the grace to have that space to fall, then we'll be okay.
We will be okay. All right, Paul, thank you so much, man.
Thank you for today.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Please like, comment, subscribe. We're also going to be on Apple and Spotify podcasts as well. You can listen to this episode. And again, Paul, thank you guys. Thank you, man. And I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.